obviously you're not a golfer.
I must have drank me about 15 Dr. Peppers.
Congratulations. How do you feel?
I gotta pay.
We have heard the chimes at midnight, Master Robert.
You're an inanimate fucking object! You told I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Who the fuck has the goddamn gall to call his house on a Tuesday night? God!
What the fuck is up, everyone? Welcome back to 3 for 3. It is our 9th episode anniversary, which makes no sense at all, but we're doing it anyways because you can't divide 10 by 3. Anyways, we have a very interesting episode. It's a 9-themed episode. And I'm joined today by Jackson Workman and Samuel Levi Holler. And yeah, we have a very interesting episode. I think it's going to be one for the books. We have I think we should we start with Jackson's pick, or should we keep that till the end?
I think we should save it a little, but
Save it. So we should start with Cat o' Nine Tails.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
you
done.
can start with Cat o' Nine Tails. It's Dario Sargento's
Yes. About a blind man
Sargento.
named Cookie swinging his thing, writing crossword puzzles, solving mysteries and shit, discovering the fact that people are being fucked up individuals and murdering people and poisoning milks and the whole works. So anyway, Cat o' Nine Tails is, as you said, Matt, a Dario Argento film from 1971, and it follows the blind crossword writer kind of solve a series of murders that take place over this time, and he gets thrusted into this crazy just Italian chase that Argento does really well. And I think it really, like, his career shifted so hard away from these kind of like real life juicy movies and went into some real crazy shit afterwards. So I appreciated this one a little bit. Did y'all like it?
Yeah, this was by far my favorite of the three that we did this week. I absolutely love this movie. I thought it was really fantastic. It's only my second Argento movie. The only other one I've seen is Suspiria. So he's someone who I've been wanting to see more of for a while. So I was glad when you chose this because I was like, all right, good. I get to knock one of his out. And yeah, I honestly like this more than Suspiria. I thought this was just such a fantastic movie. I loved how like you said, it's different than some of his stuff from that time because that obviously is like a supernatural kind of movie. And this is more like grounded, like, real world kind of thriller thing. But his style is still all over this thing, and it's great. I mean, so many just incredibly creative shots and scenes. I mean, you were just in, I don't know about you guys, but I was in just complete suspense from beginning to end throughout this whole thing. You don't know who it is, you don't know when they're going to strike. They could just be right around the corner. I love the visual bit. It did such a good job of serving as like a visual indicator of when the killer was near. The cut to his eye, whenever it kept cutting back to his eye, and you just that was like the indicator of like, oh shit, he's here, and just such a great way of just like, kind of tapping into, like, you're getting a sense of like almost his primal kind of feelings while he's doing this. Just the shot of his eye, it's almost like, the eye of like an animal, like a lion or something, as it's like hunting its prey or whatever. It's just like primal, it just does such a good job of getting you in that sense. And every time, I love the POV shots, where again, it just gives you such a good sense
Car
of like,
POV was so cool when the car was just driving around and you're right up there feeling like you're in the car.
But yeah, they don't make chase scenes like that these days. It's not as visceral.
no. And I
That's what
also go ahead.
I really like the design of everything. All the sets had so much like depth to them with different kind of things. Like everything felt full and lived in and real. And there was never a moment where I was just like, oh, they're on a set filming something. It was completely immersed.
Yeah, 100%. I thought all the sets, all the like, the apartment and the lab and like, all the different like houses they went to. Yeah, they all very much felt like real locations. But no, yeah. Great style, incredible cinematography, I have to say. So many incredibly chilling, suspenseful scenes that are helped so much by the cinematography. That entire sequence where they're in the crypt was just
Yeah.
phenomenal. That whole sequence where he's just stuck in there for a few minutes and you don't know what's going on and he's just sitting in there. And then Carl Malden comes back in and he's got the blood on his cane and just that close-up shot of his eyes, you were like genuinely in complete suspense throughout that whole scene, just like, holy shit, what is going on? It was just so well done, the whole thing. Um,
A
and I
scene that
want
made me laugh was when James Franciscus
to,
just runs and smacks that glass of milk out of her.
yeah.
If he realizes it's poisoned. The
I
poisoned milk.
One thing I will say that this is just like not even against the movie, it's just a thing that I find weird is fucking milk in the paper cartons like that bother me. I don't know why. It's just like I feel like that would make the taste of the milk worse. But
Well,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
that's what we give our children, so
I mean, it's not a paper like carton, you know?
Hey, and if you think that's bad, in Canada they have their milk in bags.
Kind of
really?
Yeah,
That's weird.
it is weird.
bagged milk, please.
Nooks.
Yeah, exactly.
I just had to get that out there because it was bothering me the whole movie. Every time they brought one out, I was like, ugh.
I wanted to ask you two, who did you think the killer was?
Well, at first I thought it was uh the I forgot the character name, the romance interest for James Franciscus.
The girl?
Yeah, I thought it was her for
Yeah,
a
me
little bit.
too.
And so then I was like, oh shit.
I was absolutely convinced it was her. And so when it wasn't, I was surprised. I was like, oh shit, okay, they must have, you know, figured we'd think that or something. Because I was like, not only just because there were so many signs, like to me, and this was clearly a deliberate attempt at misdirection. Like, again, you see the eye, you know that the killer is in his apartment, like, and then like a minute later, she knocks on his door and is coming up to his apartment and shit. And I was like, oh, it's her. I know it's her. And that was clearly an attempt at misdirection. But honestly, the main thing, it was just a visual cue. It just reminded me so much of Friday the 13th with all the POV shots where you don't see who it is, you kind of just see their hands and shit, just like in that. And it got me thinking like, well, it may just like in that movie, we think it's a guy the whole time, but it could not be. We haven't seen who it is yet. So I was just like super convinced that's who it was. And then she's got the blood on her hand, and I'm like, oh shit, I knew it. And then nope. So that was good misdirection because they definitely got me thinking that for sure.
You really should watch his, which is technically this is a sequel to Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
Mhm.
There's a lot of really good POV, like hands and stuff in that.
Yeah, it's definitely one I want to see.
It's also on
And
Prime.
say what?
Also on Prime.
Well, I'll have to give that one a look soon. Um,
I'm glad at the end though that it was the blind guy who got him.
yeah, that was perfect.
That was so funny. I was like, God damn it. Because I
I
kept
love
being like, why
his
do they have
system
this
of
guy
letters
around?
that he had while he was creating the word crossword puzzle, like where it was the alphabet, and then he just went up to how many he had used and everything. That was a
Yeah.
really cool thing.
I thought it was the characters in this I thought were so interesting, and the main characters in particular I thought were very likable. Like he was very likable from the beginning. I loved the detail that, he used to be a reporter himself and he's got a knack for it. And, you can tell he kind of misses doing that kind of stuff, which is why he's so eager to jump back into it with
Mhm.
with the young reporter. And I love how throughout the whole movie they don't make him helpless. Like, because James Franciscus's character, he constantly is like offering to help him with stuff and help him do things, and he keeps saying, like, I got it, fam. Like, like I'm good, I'm not helpless. Like, let me do my shit. And he's going out there with him, even in dangerous situations, like in the graveyard, and he's the one who gets him in the end. Yeah, like that. I agree, Matt. I thought that was fantastic that he was the one who ended up getting him. Um, it was not very smart on the bad guy's part to lie about having killed her. I don't know what he thought was going to happen there. That he was just going to let him leave after saying that. But
Mhm.
yeah, it was just a ton of honestly, just a ton of fun. It's one of those movies. This is how you know when you're watching a really great one is when you're sitting there and you're watching it and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I don't want this to end. Like I'm having so much fun watching this. Like I don't want it to be over, you know? And
It's
that
a really
was
quick hour 52.
yeah, it was a good, well-paced runtime. I thought, it's the mystery was so engaging. I was like, I want to know who it is, but I don't want the movie to end at the same time, you know? Yeah, just tons and tons of fun. I thought again, so many. Oh my God. You want to talk about suspense? I was practically squirming in my chair. The scene in the barber shop where the guy's like shaving him and he's like, yeah, it could be a barber, and if a barber did it, he wouldn't do it that way. He'd just cut his throat right out. I was like on the edge of my fucking seat throughout that entire scene. That was just so well done. I mean, so many just incredibly suspenseful, like when they're locked in the room when they're trying to break into the guy's place and they're locked in the room and they can't get out and you're just so many moments where you're just like holy shit, are they gonna get caught, are they gonna get killed, like what's gonna happen, and I thought again it was very nice the relationship between the blind guy and the girl, like that from right off the bat you can tell like, oh, this is a really sweet relationship. It's almost kind
They
of the heart of the movie. So when the killer kidnaps her towards the end, you're like, again, the stakes are super high, you're super invested, you really don't want to see this happen. So I also got a shout out, all the actors were great. James Franciscus was great. All the other actors were really good. But Carl Malden, I think, definitely was the standout as the blind dude. I think, playing blind is not easy to do. And he did it very well, very convincingly. And I just think he, injected so much humanity into his character. Like just made him very likable, very real, and very sympathetic. Um, and just very cool because again, like he was fucking shit up at the end there.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was getting them. Um,
I really enjoyed it. I've seen a lot of Argento's like later stuff, but not much of his early, so it was jarring but also extremely welcoming in terms of like how off-putting some of his movies are sometimes. I felt like there was never a moment that like I could see this being in theaters in America and people really enjoying it and getting behind it and everything kind of compared to his like 2000 something Dracula movie where Dracula 3D.
yeah.
Which,
Um, it's odd because I read apparently this is his least favorite movie that he's made.
oh wow.
I was very shocked to read that. I was like, what the fuck? Why? Especially considering the second half of his career. I mean, a lot of his movies from that time are not well liked whatsoever. So I'm like, this is your least favorite? And I guess it's just one of those things where a lot of artists tend to be very critical of their early work. And I feel like that's probably just what it is. He probably just sees it as like, oh, I didn't know what the hell I was doing back then because this is only like his second movie. So, but I
The
respectfully
music
disagree with
uh,
him. I
sometimes
really,
enjoyed.
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was just great, truly. Just very, very well done in all areas. The cinematography and the editing just helped a ton to heighten the suspense. It was already the mystery itself was already just great on the page. and you just were in absolute suspense up until the very end. So, and great score by Ennio Morricone,
Hmm.
as
That's what
always, killing it.
it was so good. That's what really sucked me in the beginning was the music, and it just kept building throughout. And it was playful at points, like when the doctor was joking about putting more clothes on the girl and all that kind of stuff. And so like the music really kind of sorry, my cat just jumped up on top of something really high. I gotta go get him. Sorry about
Uh-oh.
that.
Mhm.
Get the fuck down, you fuck.
This is the cat
Oh,
in the title. The title was
yes,
referring
that is the Cat o' Nine Tails. This could not have worked
to
out better.
Il Gatto.
He is bad.
Is that the Cat o' Nine Tails, Sam?
Il Gatto. It'd
He is bad. A bad boy.
be funny if you just like threw him against the wall.
Not to turn to my horribly bad room, but he got all the way up there and was about to knock over all that shit.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
And so I was like, I gotta get him down.
Good thing you caught him in time. You're like Carl Malden. You stopped the Cat o' Nine Tails.
The show must go on.
There you go. Um, yeah, I'm very happy that you, especially considering this was like a last minute
pivot thing.
replacement.
Yeah.
I'm glad you picked it because I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I said, it was definitely my favorite one of this week. So very happy to have seen it.
Well, speaking of Italians,
Are we are we doing it?
do you guys want to do? I don't know if we should end on a high note or end on just completely shitting on nine for the rest of the.
Let's save the best for last.
Okay, but the connection
So
is the Italian. There's definitely an Italian connection.
yes, we will revisit Italy later
The
in this
Italian connection is real.
Yeah.
episode.
Uh, so yeah, we're moving on to my pick, which is the 2009 movie Nine.
But not the
Woo!
one that I chose.
But no, there was three movies that year. Nine, Nine, and then District 9, and then there's also 999, which we couldn't find on anything.
Every rush.
And then there's the German film 999.
But so Nine is t takes place in an alternate universe. I think in the 1930s-ish, from what I gathered. And I also looked some stuff up just to make sure I was accurate on it. And it's about a scientist who makes all these little, you know, stitchy, puppety, like I don't know how to describe it, mechanical
Rag dolls.
puppets. Yep, dolls that come to life. And we don't know how at first. And we follow the titular one, which is Nine, played by Elijah Wood. And as he kind of just wakes up and starts his life, I guess, and he wanders around this, war-torn uh like city, and he ends up meeting a bunch of other puppets that are also at different numbers. And he ends up kind of getting involved with the whole they've been around for a while and there's like one and all that. And then there's this evil entity that is also taken up the souls and stuff. And it's kind of basically about good and evil and all that stuff. And the scientist has created both the enemy and the heroes. And we find out eventually that he put his soul into each one of the puppets. And it's pretty good cast. It's got John C. Riley, Christopher Plummer. I'm blanking on the rest at the moment.
Jennifer Connelly,
Jennifer.
Yep, Jennifer Connelly.
Crispin Glover.
Crispin Glover, right? He was really good.
Apparently, I didn't even he's one of my favorite actors. I didn't even recognize his voice. Martin Landau. That was
Right.
wild to find out he was in it.
But yeah, I haven't seen this movie since like when it came out. I watched Up to Nine and then Inglourious Bastards in the same week.
Oh,
And that was the first time I'd ever seen Inglourious Bastards. So definitely a time to remember. But this was definitely a really good view. I really enjoyed it. Uh, I thought there was definitely good moments where they didn't even have dialogue. And it's based on a short from the director, Sean Acker. Shane Acker. Yep. And he just made it a full-fledged movie, and he really hasn't done much since. Just like two shorts, and that's about it. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty creepy. I don't know. What did you guys think? Is this your guys' first time watching it?
was for me. Sam, I know this was a childhood movie of
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah,
Yep.
I've seen this movie a bunch, and I've seen the trailer even more. And I drug my dad to go see it with me in theaters, and I love this movie so much. It's just intense and jarring, especially during the record scene where they're like all happy and whatnot, and John C. Riley goes to get the record, and just the horrifying look on his face when it zaps and it fries into his existence. Um, I love this
Um,
movie.
yeah, this was honestly kind of fulfilling for me because um I vividly remember when this movie came out when I was a kid. It's one of many movies that it's funny because like they're the movies you see when you're a kid that are nostalgic to you that you watched a bunch. And then there are the ones like this where you've never seen it, but it's still kind of nostalgic in a way because you just remember it coming out and it takes you back to that time. And, I've always wanted to see it. It's been 15 years now since it came out. And I remember I wanted to see it back then. I've always wanted to see this movie. And so it was kind of fulfilling, like finally getting to like see it and see what it is and everything. Um, and while it wasn't like the greatest thing I've ever seen, I enjoyed it. I had a fun time watching it. It had issues, like I think writing wise, there just wasn't a lot of depth to it. It was just very kind of surface level. Not all the characters were very well developed. It was very short. I can see why it was originally a short film, like, because the concept as a short film, you don't need to expand on it more. Like, I just get the sense he had a little bit of trouble expanding the concept into a feature film. Um, but despite all that, I did really enjoy it for what it was. I thought, I was invested in the characters, I was invested in the journey. I thought visually it was very gorgeous. I thought atmospheric, it was very atmospheric. And, I really liked how for about the first 10 minutes of the movie, I don't think there's any dialogue. Like, the fact that, and the fact that this is rated PG-13, like an animated movie was rated PG-13, like it allowed them to be able to do stuff like that because they're like, okay, we've already made the choice. We're not marketing this to kids necessarily.
Yeah.
So we can have
Starting with
quieter, slower, more atmospheric kind of chunks of the movie where not a lot of dialogue is happening, not a lot of action is happening. And I liked that. And I thought the world, um, that they built, I like the look of it. I like the feel. I thought there were a lot of moments where, like when the first character speaks in the first 10 minutes, you feel it because it's been so quiet. And just when Nine is finally able to speak again, you feel it because um he hasn't been able to say anything for the first 10 minutes. And like Sam, I'm glad you pointed that out. The scene where the brain thing appears through the mist and John C. Riley sees it, like genuinely just a very haunting moment. I thought like, oh my God, like that was just you knew like I knew it wasn't over yet. I was like, something's gonna happen. But seeing just like the red light like through the shadow and just like well with the just contrasted with the happy music playing in the background, it
that.
was just so effective. I was like, God, that was a really good fucking scene. Um,
I
and
love, side note real quick, I really love Two's candle hat thing. And I really like that they just keep throughout the movie tying Nine's connection to Two and their inventiveness and the way that he's basically kind of like a younger him in a sense.
something I liked, that I thought was actually really good writing wise was for the first part of the movie, so much of the emphasis is on them saving two. And they like, really have to like kind of find their courage to go save him. And it's such an important kind of plot point. and they do it, they save him, and then immediately afterwards he dies anyway, and it's just horrifying, and you're just like, fuck. Like, I don't, that was just very mature writing, very kind of sad, very kind of like unexpected, and just like, damn, like that's hard to deal with. That's heavy, you know? And because again, it's a PG-13 movie, they can actually have the deaths look more horrifying than they probably would in like a
Yeah.
G or a PG animated movie. So, because when he dies and like that just shot of him hitting the ground and he's all kind of like smoking and lifeless.
Eyes pop.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like, damn, man, you know, but
And I really like the design of all the creatures that are like the cat, the bird, and then
yeah.
the
Like the
snake.
centipede thing with the baby, like the
Yeah,
the doll head.
That was
Yeah.
creepy looking.
it was great.
And they really got a lot of emotions out of the like faces, even though it was kind of, there's not like a face, it's just the puppet and the eyes. But through the eyes, they did a lot with the emotion, I think.
Do y'all think one was ashamed of his top knot? Because everyone else had a rounded head, and
The
he was one
source
of.
of his frustration, his top knot.
But I loved his penny, like showing the number one um on his hat.
Yeah. I mean, I
Christopher
thought it was
Robin.
interesting too, the kind of like he had to like give up his state like power, and go
Mhm.
through that. But the one funny line was when he has to let go of the cape, and then he just goes, "You owe me a new cape,"
Yeah.
as he just pushes past him.
Knockups. But yeah, that and again, like there were a lot of very interesting like, character dynamics. I just wish that they were more fleshed out. It was
Mhm.
like, to me, it's like, all right, you've got a lot of interesting stuff here. I like the world you set up. I like the character dynamics you set up. It's just, to me, there could have been a lot more, like writing wise, there just wasn't always the most depth, but nevertheless, um, when each of them died, you definitely felt it. Like it was sad. Like even the smaller characters like Six, who didn't really get a lot to do, you still felt sad when he died, especially considering he basically went out trying to convince them, to not destroy the thing, but to like save the souls that were trapped inside, basically. And I love the visual at the end of, each of them coming out, their ghosts coming out, and one just giving him like the silent nod and kind of redeeming himself in a way. And yeah, like you said, a lot of the designs of the machines were really, really cool and very the main like kind of brain machine reminded me of GLaDOS from Portal.
Yeah.
Kind of had that vibe
Yeah.
to it. But yeah, it definitely was again like I had a lot of fun watching it. I did think it was like, all right, this is a nice fun time, a good adventure. It was very short, like without credits, it was only about an hour and 12 minutes. And I was just like, damn, that fucking like came and went. That was short. And again, that was kind of something I wish they had done was I'm like, make it an hour and a half, make it like build the world out, like give us some more. I want to, because I did enjoy the world and I did enjoy the characters. And I guess that's kind of my thing was just like, I wanted more. I wanted like, but it was fun. I had a lot of fun with it. And I think each of the voice actors all did a really good job too. I think they all fit their characters very well. I think
I
John C. Riley in particular, I thought was really good as his character.
Mhm.
And Elijah Wood also, and just all of them.
Christopher Plummer.
yeah, I
Yeah.
really
He was
like
an Up that year too, crazy. I know.
that's why I
Oh
loved
yeah, that's right. Wow, two animated movies that year he did.
his speech about the world getting silent, and they soon will one day they wait for one day the beast to finally become silent as well. And I just real it was kind of a one of the moments that I as a kid I never really noticed how like sad that is. And then so rewatching it as an adult was a little different, and that's what I really enjoyed about it because I it definitely felt a lot shorter and less grand in a sense than the way I had imagined it as a kid. But I just remember how likable some of the characters like 3 and 4 were and stuff like that. And so seeing that again was really fun. And I love when their like eyes are taking the photographs and how like their book have the cords within each page that to take them to wherever they need to go within that library. I found that really cool and just those small things that were like inventions and just creativity because they're the scientist's soul and all have a part of what made him. So, terrifying to start off with his corpse in the
Yeah.
and it really sets the standard. So
Yeah. And I think also, you know, one thing that was so cool about it, I think, that really helped elevate it a lot for me was the creativity of a lot of the story choices. Like, well, first of all, I really like how you're genuinely like, at least I was really guessing the whole time. I was like, why did he make them? Like, why, how did they come into being? What is their purpose? I was genuinely, they do such a good job of just, revealing little by little as the movie goes on and, kind of keeping that secret and building that mystery where you're genuinely so curious, like, and then when they finally reveal, and that adds to the intrigue of the movie. And I think, when they finally reveal it, it's very creative. I really love the idea that they're each a different part of his personality and his soul, that each kind of have a part of him. And that was just very creative. I really appreciated that because it could have been something way more boring, but it was something really cool and creative and exciting. And it's like, oh, and when you finally find out, you're like, oh, that's so wild. And yeah, just like, yeah, the opening shot of his corpse on the floor was definitely like kind of chilling, but also when you show the whole flashback and it shows him drop to the floor and then it fades into the present where he's still in the exact same spot, that also I thought was very effective. It's like, oh shit, now I
that's
know how
one
he
thing
got there.
I was thinking a lot about how they show the machine when he's getting taken away by the government officials, like fighting to try to save him. And so, but they also add to that, like the mystery that they said at the beginning of like, how did he die? And so, like, I was thinking about how I think the machine wouldn't have killed him, even though it killed all the humans. If it saw him again, it wouldn't have.
Very
So,
possible.
and so then I was just thinking throughout the movie, like, how did he die and everything? And so that's where I really like that they reveal it later rather than giving that to you immediately that he chose to kill himself for the greater of humanity rather than succumb to the machine, even though he probably wouldn't have been killed by the machine in my brain. I
Well,
think,
yeah, because I was thinking if to that point, maybe the machine wasn't, I mean, while the reason why it was trying to kill all the puppets was because it was taking the souls and it wanted his soul complete, like in it,
yeah,
because I didn't think about that until you brought it up.
Well, and that's what I love too, is I love the contrast of like the main machine is evil and it's destroying everything because as he says, it doesn't have a soul and that was his mistake. And the puppets are, basically his solution to that problem. Like the next thing I create, I am going to give a human soul. I'm going to give my soul to it. And they end up, defeating the machine. And I love the contrast of seeing like a machine with and without a soul and how they interact differently, like how they function differently. One is just a completely mindless killing machine, and the others have like distinct personalities and stuff.
I might be, I can't pronounce the name, Mandela affected, because I swear to God, as a kid, when maybe I'm wrong, but I swear I saw that ending shot with the rain and it kind of gets blurry and then the raindrops are on the frame. I could have sworn like a small little plant like sprouted out of the ground and that's how it ended, showing that like life was returning to the world after that. But I could be wrong.
I don't
But
remember
that
it. I
upset
don't
me
remember
when
seeing that.
I mean, it didn't happen when I watched it this time, and so that's where I was like, "What the fuck?" I thought that happened in this movie, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I feel like I'm being tricked by HBO.
But yeah, to sum up about Animated Nine, just really, yeah, visually stunning movie, great performances from the cast. and likable characters that you get invested in. And again, glad you picked it because I've always wanted to see it. I've always been curious about it, and I had a fun time watching it, for sure.
Oh yeah. Now we have to move on to the infamous live action 9, where Daniel
Yes.
Day-Lewis takes over the Elijah Wood role. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the live action adaptation didn't go very well, did it? They made a few creative choices that strayed from the source material.
Mm.
Yeah, so my pick this week, and I apologize to both of you. Well, I apologize to Sam, Matt. This is my revenge for Onyx. But
Still
yeah,
not as bad.
this this is the live action 9, which also came out in 2009, starring a whole bunch of people who have no business being in a movie this shitty. Daniel Day-Lewis, Penelope Cruz, Nicole Kidman, Marion Cotillard, Fergie, Sophia Loren, Judi Dench, big ass cast.
Kate Hudson.
And it is an adaptation of the Broadway musical 9, which is itself an adaptation of the classic Italian film 8½, which I basically consider this a remake of 8½. I mean, it pretty much is. It follows the plot pretty closely. And so just like 8½, the plot is about a legendary Italian director based on Federico Fellini, who is struggling with creative block while trying to make his latest movie. And in the meantime, while he's trying to figure out what the movie is and what it's going to be, he recalls the relationships with all of the most important women in his life and the mistakes he's made with them and how they've kind of shaped his life. And the obvious key difference between this and 8½, is it's a musical. So,
And not directed
yeah.
by Fellini.
So,
Yeah.
And not directed by Fellini.
and not directed by Fellini, yeah. So here's what I'll say right off the bat. I picked this one, having heard for many years that it sucked because it's a movie I've always been very curious about. Because to me, this is like, if you pitch this to me, this would be like a home run movie. This is like a dream movie for me. Rob Marshall directing a Broadway musical adaptation starring Daniel Day fucking Lewis and all those other people I mentioned. And it's just like, how is this bad? Like, I will enjoy this on some level. Like on some level, this will appeal to me. I was wrong. This was a piece of shit. And I think this is the first time so far in the history of this podcast that all three of us completely agree that a movie is a piece of shit.
You can't even get more than 5 minutes into this movie without it hitting the brakes so hard that your face just drops and you're sitting there and you are like, please be over. But then you see that you have over an hour and a half to an hour 40 minutes left in this fucking movie, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then there's one good moment where Nicole Kidman sings later, and then it gets even worse. And I just
True story. That's the exact experience watching this movie.
the very first scene, it's like, okay, I'm here for this. And then the first musical number starts, and I'm like, okay, I'm here for this. And then you get like a few lines into the first musical number, and I just
It's so fucked up they named him Guido. Like that is the most
Oh,
generic
Guido.
Well, that
Italian.
was his name in the original movie too, but
Okay.
It's
I haven't seen 8½, but I'm assuming
different when it's the Italians doing it.
yeah, I mean, like they changed his last name in this version for some reason, but in the original his name was also Guido. But yeah, but here's the thing. Um it First of all, I had to, the day after I watched this, I had to rewatch 8½, because I was like, oh God, I need to see this story done right. That this was just depressing to watch. And so, I mean, there are a million different reasons why that's infinitely better. That's a fucking masterpiece. But Sam, do you care if I mean, you've seen the story basically, so it's not spoiling it. So do you care if I go into specifics about the original? Okay. So there are a lot of differences that I'll get into, but here's the main reason it doesn't work, okay? First of all, I just want to say I fucking love Rob Marshall. I know not all of his movies have been fantastic, but I don't give a shit. That man could never make another good movie for the rest of his life, and I won't care because he's the man who made Chicago. Like Chicago is one of my all-time favorite movies. Like love it to death. It's just I love it so much, and that's why I was like again, like this is from the director of Chicago. Like he's in his element here. How the hell could this not work? I don't know what the fuck he was on when he was making this, man, but he could not have dropped the ball harder. But it's like you're watching two different movies. It is unbelievable how much it doesn't work. It's unbelievable because, like, he's trying to clearly go for the same thing he was going for in Chicago, where, all of the numbers, and you've both seen that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So in Chicago, all of the numbers were like in her imagination. The whole musical aspect, it's like it's a part of her imagination how she sees it, right? So in a lot of instances, when they cut to like the characters singing on a stage in that movie, first of all, it's justified because it's how she sees it. Second of all, like it intercuts like them singing in the real world and then them singing on the stage. They blend together so much better, especially considering the environment on the stage match the environment in the real world, or they pertain to the number in some way. But you remember the we both reached for the gun number, like that, the way that was staged made sense because the environment on the stage, when they cut to them on the stage, is the same as it is in the real world. It's a bunch of reporters at a press conference, and they're being held on strings like puppets, which is the whole point of the song. It matches. So, and again, the whole thing doesn't take place on the stage. They cut back and forth plenty so that, again, you get a sense of like, this is the same scene, you know? Here, every single time they cut to a number, like the stage version of the number versus the real world version, it's like you're watching two different movies. They don't have anything to do with each other. The environments do not look the same at all. I mean, like the number with Penelope Cruz, where she does her first number, has absolutely nothing to do with what's happening. It's like he's talking to her on the phone, and then it just cuts to her in this environment with all this like fabric everywhere. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, did we cut to a later number in the movie? Like these two environments are so visually different. The tone of the regular scene does not at all match the tone of this musical number. And then like the scene with Daniel Day-Lewis at the press conference, like again, it just like he doesn't sing in the real world at all.
Punch his smarmy ass face in that scene.
Yeah. And he like in the real world, it's like, why is this scene taking place here? Like, because it's him at a press conference in like a hotel room. And then when you cut to him singing, he's on like these metal girders and shit. And I'm like, these two environments do not match. I do not feel like this is taking place in the same scene. It's like you're cutting to a completely different location with a completely different vibe, and then it just keeps cutting back to him at the press conference, not singing, just standing there and not saying anything. And it's like, these do not match. It is unbelievable how much you are taking me out of it because these two environments and these two tones do not match. Again, like with in Chicago, like with the Mr. Cellophane scene, when it cuts to him on the stage, again, it makes sense. Even though that location doesn't look like the real world location he's in, where he's in Richard Gere's office, it matches because again, this is how he feels in this moment, like a sad clown singing on a stage with no one paying attention to him. That's how he feels every moment of his life. So it matches how he feels in this scene. And it's not just completely jarring. It has a reason, and they blend it together so well. like they keep cutting back to him having the conversation in Richard Gere's office, and they actually managed to blend it together. And that was just every scene in Chicago. That's how, and they have in Chicago really well staged scenes where they're singing in the real world. Like again, the Cell Block Tango, that they don't just cut to a stage and then occasionally just cut back to Catherine Zeta-Jones just sitting there in a prison cell. Like they actually take the time to stage a real world scene there. And like there's so many moments like that where these numbers just do not match. The most jarring, like this, the one with Kate Hudson, where she's singing in the like could not be more visually different. Like she's just sitting in a bar trying to get his attention, and then cut to like this black and white, like photo shoot looking musical number. It just doesn't match. You're just literally, it felt like the entire time they were just splicing two different movies together. It didn't fucking work. And that's the whole damn movie. And then there are just scenes where it's like, um, again, you're like, I'm sorry, what are we singing about here? Like, why do we need to stop the whole movie? Like the Kate Hudson number, apparently that was an original number for the movie. So it's not even in the original musical, which makes sense because it has no fucking purpose. It just stops the story dead in its fucking tracks and has nothing to do with anything. And Nicole Kidman's number, I thought was one of the most pointless ones in the whole movie because I'm like, I'm sorry, it has not been mentioned or even vaguely referenced at any point that you two have had a past thing. It hasn't been explored at all. You're just singing about it like it's this emotional thing we've been building towards the whole movie. Like we're supposed to have some kind of context for it. And I'm like, I didn't know until this scene that you two had any kind, because in the original movie, they don't. In the original movie, they don't have any kind of at least acknowledged romantic past. He doesn't even know who she is in the original movie. So it's just like, why? This is such a weird change. And again, throughout that whole scene, it felt like they were splicing two different movies together. Like they're walking down the corridor and they're having a conversation, and he's like, Daniel Day-Lewis is talking and having dialogue, and then it just fades out and she just starts singing again. It just, they do not flow together at all. They just keep cutting into each other.
Yeah.
When they start talking, it cuts into the singing. And when they start singing, it interrupts the talking. And it's like, this, it's unbelievable how much none of the numbers match. And a lot of them just, it's not that they're not well staged, it's just they're not well staged in the context of the scene. Like again, one of the most jarring and worst number in the movie to me was the one towards the end with Marion Cotillard, where I swear they were trying to just jar you on purpose because it more than any other scene in the movie, those two scenes do not match. It's like a really tender, quiet, emotional scene where she and her husband are having this emotional confrontation and realizing that, you know, she realizes, oh, I'm not special. Like you do this with everybody and I'm not special. And I realize now that our whole relationship has been a sham, basically. And it's very like emotional, understated. You'd think it would require a tender, kind of somber number. And then right as they're getting into the meat of that, her hand shoots through the curtain. And then, you know, it's this risque, like strip club number where she's taking all her clothes off and doing this provocative, this high energy dance number. And then it cuts back to them just having the tender moment in the screening room. And they're having this emotional conversation. And she's taking more of her clothes off. And it's like, unbelievable how much this shit doesn't match. Unbelievable. That scene where the number starts and her hand shoots through the curtain was the most jarring shit. And they did it on purpose. I swear to you, they did it on purpose. They wanted to. And again, that number also apparently was not in the original musical. So again, it makes sense because it doesn't fucking fit. And it's like, wow, you're just I more than any other scene in the movie, it feels like you're just splicing two different movies together that have nothing to do with each other and are just two completely different movies and putting them in the same scene. It's like, what the fuck? And that's the thing too. In the original 8.5, that is one change from the original that I actually thought was really good, was that scene in the screening room. That didn't exist in the original movie. I mean, there's a scene like that, but just the detail of him saying that to her and that being like her core memory of him, like, thank you for making me feel this way and looking so beautiful. And then she sees him do it with the other actress, and she's like, oh, even the moments that I think are ours aren't really ours. That like that specific bit of dialogue that wasn't in the original movie. And I thought to myself, like, oh, that's actually a really good like improvement. Like that's actually a really good like way to show like, oh, what a sleazebag this guy is, and she's not special, but they don't do anything with it except this like stupid number they just throw in there that just doesn't match. It's the whole thing just so doesn't work. And so again, to go into spoilers about the end here, Matt, since you've seen the original, what do you think of the ending of the original? Do you think he actually kills himself or that it's just in his head?
I always thought it was in his head because like half the movie's in his head. So
Right. And
I mean, that's just I haven't seen it in a minute, to be fair, but it's
the ending of the original is a bit different in that, once he decides there's no movie, they take him to a press conference basically, and he's trying to get out of it. And the producer guy is like, I've been putting up with your shit forever. I'm sick of it. Either commit to this or I'll ruin you. And he, takes a gun out, Guido does, and shoots himself. And, it's, I guess, up to interpretation whether he really did or if it's in his head. And then in the end is basically him, kind of like the ending of this one, directing all of his friends and family, and realizing that they're what's important to him and shit. I could be totally wrong. Um, I always interpreted the end of the original as he actually does kill himself,
mm,
because to me the whole point of the movie is he's been holding all this shit in his entire life, all this internalized trauma from when he was a kid that he has based on his Catholic upbringing and his, relationships with women that met, like with his mom and with the prostitute on the beach, that may have been damaging to him, and it's why he treats women the way he does now. And he's been holding all this shit in his entire life, and finally he can't run from it anymore, and it explodes out of him basically, and culminates in him like shooting himself in the end. And then after he's dead, basically, is when he finally realizes, like, oh shit, that I know how to, because a big theme in the original is he's a man who doesn't know how to love, like truly. And he realizes how to do it basically when it's too late, after he's already
Yeah.
dead, basically. That's how I interpret it. Even if you don't think he kills himself at the end, still the point is all of this has culminated to, he's reached a breaking point where he can't handle this shit anymore, and it ends in a dramatic way. So to me, like in the original, you feel the pressure so much of, he has to figure this movie out, like you're with him, feeling the anxiety and the suspense of, is he going to get this movie figured out? Because there are stakes, because he can't just get out of it. That's not possible. He can't just say, I just don't want to do the movie anymore, because, then all the tension is gone. So the idea of him at the end of this just going to them and just saying, yeah, we're not doing the movie anymore, and that's just it. It kills all the tension. It's just like, even in the original, even if you don't think he kills himself, the fact that he still has kind of a breakdown at the end and imagines himself doing it, if that's what you think happens, still like the length that he has to go to, the dramatic things that have to happen, like him ducking under the table and hiding from the reporters at the press conference, in order for the movie to be canceled, something dramatic has to happen. Because if he can just cancel it at any time, the anxiety and the pressure throughout the movie is just gone. So
Yeah.
I thought that was also just kind of a weak place for it to go at the end of this one. He's just like, yeah, we're just not doing it anymore. It's like, well, that just, what? He just took away all the stakes. I mean, that we were supposed to be feeling throughout the whole movie. And Yeah, I mean, there's so much wrong with it. It's unbelievable how much it doesn't work. I mean,
Matt, I saw your letterbox review just drop and drop and drop.
Because I
What?
liked it at first. Like, I didn't even hate the first opening musical number. I wasn't like completely ruined it yet. I was like, okay, I'll give it I'm still gonna keep watching. And then it just kept getting worse and worse. And I was like, fuck. Because I really liked the first 5 minutes. First, maybe like when it's in black and white and he's doing the press conference. And, I didn't really look into the movie too much, so I didn't know it was Fellini up until I kind of started figuring it out. I was like, wait, why does this sound so familiar? Oh, that's why it's nine. And it also kind of that pissed me off too, the gall of just being like, okay, we're gonna remake it, but we're gonna call it nine. Because could have just called it 8.5, the musical. We're gonna call it nine.
apparently that was because when they made the Broadway musical, that was like Fellini's one stipulation was they couldn't call it 8.5.
Association.
Yeah, so
Or
he
that was
approved of the project, but he just didn't want them to use the name. But yeah, and apparently the musical, like I said, like there are at least three numbers in this that apparently weren't even in the original musical, and he cut a lot of the original numbers out. So I'm
That's
guessing the musical is probably a lot better. And this is just like a really bad adaptation of it. And again, like I'm sure the musical blends, like each time there's a number, it makes sense. Like
I
the
wanted to tell
environment.
Dame Judi Dench to shut the fuck up. Cause like, god damn, her song went on for way too long for
Yeah, I
me.
agree.
And it's hard to make me not like her. I was like, fuck you, Dame Judi
I give
Dench.
it to her though. She was doing a good French accent
Oh
during
yeah.
that number. Because I remember at first I was like, so Judi Dench is the only one in the movie who's not even trying to hide her accent whatsoever. But then she did in the number. So, but what I will say is this. First of all the actors are trying their best. I mean, they have little to nothing to work with, but they're trying their best. But I gotta say, the one number in the movie that actually really worked and it pissed me off because it showed me how much potential the movie had if all the numbers had been like this one. The one where Marion Cotillard was singing when they're in the restaurant and she's talking about my husband makes movies and all this stuff. That number really worked because more than any of the others, it was better shot, it was better staged. It was the closest one out of all of them that matched the environment that they were in. So it felt like we had a tangible connection to what was going on because unlike all the other numbers, the tone was not drastically different from the tone in the real world, and the environment was not drastically different from the real environment. It was like just her standing on the staircase, and the dinner table with everyone still sitting at it is still there. So, it felt like it was part of the scene. It felt organically like it's just her very sadly, very quietly singing and staring at him as he's sitting in his chair at the table and like there's nothing but almost total blackness around her and a spotlight, which matches how she feels. She's like, I feel alone. I feel like, this fucking guy over here doesn't treat me well. And again, there's a connection to the real world equivalent of what's going on. And she was just phenomenal in the scene. I don't like her at all usually. I think she's a very overrated actress. But I gotta give it to her. She was really good in this. And in that scene where again, it's not trying to do all this big bombastic, like, cinematography and everything. It's just most of it is just a close up on her face, just showing all the emotions that she's feeling. And it's actually a very tender, kind of sad number. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, why didn't you do the whole movie this way? Like, this is a lot closer to what it should have been. Again, something that Chicago did so well, enough can't be said about it, is every single one of the numbers, if it wasn't just in the real world, if they ever cut to like the stage world, it matched, and that's why it worked. And they just don't do that for any of the numbers here except for this one. And I'm like, see, this is how you're supposed to do it. Like, I hate that I have to explain this to the director of one of the greatest movie musicals of all time, and one of my favorite movies. You'd think he'd know. I don't know what the fuck he was smoking when he was making this movie. And I still, again, I don't give a shit if he made 10 of these things. I still love him to death just because he made Chicago, but he dropped the ball hard on this one, man. I mean,
I gotta
truly.
start buying multiple copies of it on DVD and leaving them on his front porch with piles of poop on top of it. Just so
Yeah,
he knows. And then I'll have to hire security, but I'm gonna get around them.
take 9 shits on his doorstep.
A- Yeah, I was gonna say after it's gonna be the first three are on DVD, the second three are on Blu-ray, and then by the time he has the security, it's gonna be 4K, but it won't be when he's expecting, and the 4K copies will be just perfectly like laid out with a little dollop of poop on each of them.
It's like a little brick house made of shit and
Yeah,
9.
yeah, physical copies of 9 that I'm not gonna buy via any seller that would support him. I would get it from like pawn shops and secondhand stores, so that way he does not get any money for this fucking piece of shit.
You've heard of a brick shit house? Well, now this is a shit brick house.
Mhm.
That's
I
what
just can't believe I've seen this twice.
I'm so sorry
Or
that you
yeah,
watched this
poor
twice.
Sam.
I can't imagine having to suffer through this thing twice. I was
I have
legit,
seen the poster for this quite a bit, so I was, one of those kind of like you, Jackson, with the other 9. It was kind of like, okay, well, I finally have seen this movie now.
yeah. This is one I've been so curious about for so long. I was like, even if it doesn't work, surely there will be something that I get out of it because this is just gift wrapped to be amazing and to be something that I love. And it didn't even take long, man. I mean, within the first 10 minutes, I was already like, oh God, this is gonna fucking suck ass. It just kept getting worse and just more boring and just it's just unbelievable how much it feels like a knockoff of Chicago from just some amateur director. So the fact that it's from the director of Chicago is just shocking to me.
This
So
my work came to me and was like, "Oh shit, the new Daniel Day-Lewis movie is a remake of Dumb and Dumber," and then showed me this photo of him and Sean Bean in filming their new movie, and I hope it's a comedy. I really hope
I would
it's
watch the shit
lighthearted.
out of Dumb and Dumber with Daniel Day-Lewis and Sean Bean.
Dumb and Dumber 2.
Dumb and Dumber.
Left foot has now become the right.
Say what?
The left foot has now become the right, and
Indeed.
we'll see which
Instead of my left
toe
foot,
is
it's
the
my
dumbest.
left chromosome.
Indeed. But yeah, um there was just nothing very, very, very little that I enjoyed in this. I mean, truly, just
No redeeming factor in 9.
yeah, I mean, very few. Again, the actors are doing the best. Daniel Day-Lewis, I think, kills it as always. Most of the actors are doing a fine job. Some of them are very underused. Sophia Loren was criminally underused. She had really no purpose. Her number was so pointless, it was unbelievable.
They had to put her in the movie so they could say they had her in the movie.
Yeah, just to say like we have an actual Italian actor in the movie. But yeah, just disappointing for sure. So what can you say except
Oh, Guido,
I
Guido.
see a
Why?
meatball.
so what?
I said, I see a meatball, and then Sam said something else, but we both did
Oh,
the
Guido, Guido, why?
Guido.
Yeah, they did not make a spicy meatball with this one.
No.
Um, I would not say this.
More
This
like
meatball was not very
it's
spicy.
more like next morning spaghetti poops.
Yeah, this is like spaghetti that they made wrong and gives you diarrhea afterwards.
Some spaghetti made by a suburban white mom.
Yeah. This was the equivalent. If this was an Italian meal, it's the equivalent of Michael Corleone shooting those 2 guys in The Godfather. That's the meal that we had with this film. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, so I guess go ahead and take us out, Matt.
Well, there you have it. We are 2 for 3 on the 9th anniversary podcast.
The nine special. We're dressed to the nines for this one.
Yes,
Woo!
we are. Woo! But yeah, we hope you enjoyed the, the shitting upon nine, the live action one.
Yes.
A momentous occasion, I have to say. The first time we've all truly hated one of the movies on here. So,
And we better have better fucking picks next time.
Yeah, and this is a daily reminder to not drink your milk from a paper carton.
an important public service announcement.